We're going to take on one of the biggest issues in a long time, the passage of the budget reconciliation bill, which is broad in scope and has many dire impacts on our Commonwealth and on many people, really across the globe, as we'll get to. What we're going to do tonight is James Walkinshaw, I think, who needs no introduction, our candidate for Congress, is going to give a few opening remarks. Then Senator Salim will give a few remarks. Then I'm going to do some briefing, and then we're very fortunate to have Delegate Vivian Watts, chair of our Finance Committee in the Commonwealth House of Delegates, and she's going to talk about the tax provisions, and then I'll finish up with some more stuff. We will, if you have questions, you can put them on the chat. We have a pretty nice audience here, which is great, but I'm not sure we'll be able to get to every question, but we'll try. All right. Without further ado, I'll kick it over to James and give us your thoughts on this situation.
Well, thank you, Andy, and it's so great to see such a big crowd here, and thank you for organizing this entire series of briefings. I think it's a great service to us, and I spent a big chunk of the primary campaign that we just went through talking about what Trump calls the big beautiful bill. I call it the big BS bill, in the hopes of generating enough opposition to it to stop it. Quite frankly, I was never optimistic that we would be able to block this bill's passage in Congress. I spent more than a decade watching Republicans in Congress, and if there's one thing that motivates them above all else, it is cutting taxes for the very wealthy and taking health care from working people. And fundamentally, that's what this bill does and it is about. So unfortunately, I think it was always the case that they were going to pass this bill. I wish they hadn't, but at the same time, it does give us, as Democrats, an opportunity to communicate to the American people exactly what Trump and this Republican majority in Congress are all about. And I won't go too far into the details of the reconciliation bill because I know Andy's going to give you and the other folks here are going to give you a lengthy presentation on it. I will just hit some of the highlights, things that you have probably heard before. But because of this bill, somewhere between 16 and 17 million people will lose their health insurance through the cuts to Medicaid, the cuts to Affordable Care Act programs. And fundamentally, this bill is about making life more difficult for working people who are trying to access health care. It increases red tape and arbitrary requirements and bureaucracy to make their lives so difficult and make it so cumbersome that they can't qualify for the programs that they deserve to access and that we as taxpayers all pay for. We know and you have read that millions of families will lose access to food assistance as a result of this bill. The CBO has confirmed that SNAP benefits will be stripped from millions of families. And why are they doing all of this? Fundamentally, it's to give more tax breaks to the wealthy. There's a total of $5 trillion in tax breaks in the bill. Most of that money goes to the very wealthy. In fact, the richest 0.1%, the richest 0.1% will receive an average $300,000 tax cut in 2027 as a result of this bill. So that's what this is really all about. It's also, and I know Andy will talk about this, it is a complete fiscal disaster. If anyone ever believed that the Republican Party was a party of fiscal responsibility, this bill should explode that myth the way that it explodes the deficit and the debt, adding at least $3 trillion to the national debt. And I know this will be talked about later. That's not just an abstract thing. We're at a point now where the deficit and debt, where it is a driver of inflation and will be a driver of inflation moving forward. That means higher costs for Americans who try to purchase a home, higher costs for Americans who go to the grocery store to buy their groceries, and on and on and on. An issue that's a personal passion of mine clean energy and climate change and environmental issues. The bill, as we know, phases out key tax incentives, which will discourage the transition to electric vehicles, solar, wind. It abandons so much of the progress on climate and innovation that the Biden administration led on. But I think an important point for us to take to our neighbors across Fairfax and to the American people across the nation, this bill will drive up energy costs by making those renewable energy projects more expensive. It significantly boosts funding for ICE, for immigration enforcement, uh, exacerbating the reckless
Come
approach
on.
that ICE is taking
Okay,
across
I'm
our
in.
communities,
It's just I'm trying
uh,
to get the sound.
taking their eye off the ball of
Hmm.
dealing with the small number of folks
Here.
who are committing violent acts and terrorizing and deporting law-abiding, tax-paying immigrants in our community. And look, I think if Congress wanted to invest in public safety, actually making communities across the country safer, we know that investing in local police departments that do community policing makes communities safer. We know that investing in violence intervention programs that can reduce homicide rates makes communities safer. They could have done those things. More money for ICE to continue their terror campaign does not make our communities safer. So we know that there will be significant consequences to this bill. Rural hospitals will close. People will lose access to their health care. People will lose access to critical nutrition assistance. Experts from Yale and UPenn have said that this bill could result in as many as 51,000 premature, unnecessary deaths per year. When people lose access to their health care, they die. This is a life and death issue for many, many Americans. It is not abstract. So it is incumbent on us as Democrats, and I intend to do this over the course of this campaign and hopefully after the campaign in Congress, to go to the American people and explain just how much of a betrayal this bill is. Donald Trump ran for office, ran for president, saying that he was going to help Americans and lower costs for Americans. This bill will make their lives more expensive. There is no question about that. For the vast majority of Americans, their lives will be more expensive as a result of this bill. And we have to take that to the American people. Final point I'll make, it is really important for us to communicate the facts to people because Republicans are lying about this bill already. My Republican opponent in this race said to WTOP just this week that the bill doesn't, and this is a quote, doesn't cut a dime from Medicaid. And that is just flat out untrue. It is just untrue. But they are already starting that narrative. So we really have to get out there tell people the facts. And I think we have a real opportunity to highlight the contrast between our values as Democrats. We're focused on making people's lives more affordable, lowering healthcare costs, making it easier to purchase a home, making it easier to put your kids in college. And this big BS bill from the Republicans is going to make all of that harder for hardworking families across this country. So Andy, thank you. Delegate Watts, Senator Salim, thank you for being here to help us spread that message and educate ourselves. And thank you all so much for giving up your evening to be part of it.
Thank you so much, James. We look forward to hearing a lot more from you in years to come. And thank you for your time. Next, Senator Salim. Go ahead, Sanam. Hold on. Technical problem.
Andy, can you make me host?
Okay. I've made you host. Sorry, everyone.
There we go. That works. The host had to unmute me. Thank you, Supervisor Walkinshaw, and thank you, Delegate Watt, for being here. And Andy, thank you for putting this together. I think it's a good segue for us. Some of the things that I want to talk about. I'm Senator Saddam Salim. I represent Senate District 37. And in my term for 4-year term, in it for 2 years, and as somebody who's worked in the federal side and as a contractor who I've done budgets for about almost 5 years in a couple of agencies, and now I get the opportunity to be in the state house and to represent folks um, that are actually federal contractors that are impacted by this, including a lot of my constituents. So I really wanted to just quickly talk about. It is true what James has said. This is not a beautiful bill at all. This is actually a bill that's going to cripple a lot of us, especially in Virginia. So I really want to go into what that means. It's going to go and put a lot of cuts to Medicaid. This isn't just, some abstract line item in a budget. This is about real people. This is about elderly parents, our children with disabilities, and low-income families who rely on Medicaid for life-saving care. We're looking at potentially 21% reduction in federal Medicaid funding for our state, which ends up meaning that there's going to be loss of healthcare coverage. More rural hospitals are going to struggle to keep their doors open. And that ripple effect is going to end up where we all end up paying more for our healthcare costs. This includes, a lot of hospitals, especially the hospitals that are community oriented. They've been, looking at this bill as a way to say, this is going to cripple us. This is going to take away our ability to provide services. And that's exactly what this is going to do. They're going to have to find the money somewhere else. If not, they're going to end up closing those down. And in Virginia, this is particularly going to impact Southwest Virginia, where a lot of people rely on community hospitals or hospitals that are funded by Medicaid. And the second part about this is, and many of you may have already seen this, is that literally this is taking food off of our families. Folks that rely on SNAP, those are the folks that are going to get impacted by this. Over 100,000 people that are low income Virginians. And I say this as somebody who has come from low income housing, who has come from government assisted programs. This is not just about, hey, it's a couple 100,000 people. This is about real people that are going to go hungry, despite their parents working, and of course the new requirements that they're putting out there, so that people who want to get the government assistance have to do a lot more in order to get those benefits. And it's going to end up where people are going to pick: do I feed my family, or do I go ahead pay the rent, or do I just abandon the whole idea of feeding my family? And in Virginia, before my time, before I got to the General Assembly, we passed the Clean Economy Act. And that focused a lot on some of the environmental impacts. What are we going to do to eliminate the harm that that is being done in the Commonwealth? And this bill, what it does is it slams that brake on our clean energy progress. It eliminates vital tax credits for electric vehicles and home energy upgrades, essentially just gutting every program that's designed to protect the environment. And we in Virginia have done the work over the last couple of years in making sure that we set the standards of what does it mean to do better for the environment. So when I talk about a couple of these things, I don't just say it because that's what's written out there or that's what we see on the news. These are real things that are impacting Virginia. And my ask to a lot of you all is that, what can Virginia do? What can we as legislators do? And those things are going to end up being where we have to prioritize and protect some of the projects that are in our Commonwealth. We have to make sure we find funding for the difference in funding, whether it's Medicaid or SNAP benefits. We as a state have to find that difference. And the other part is we as a state have to ensure that we continue to build on the progress we have made when it comes to the environment, when it comes to the uh, future of Virginia and what they're doing for the environment. So those are some of the things. And the one thing I will ask a lot of the folks that are here is that Andy's going to go through a lot of data. He's going to go through a lot of information that at first might not really make sense. But you have to understand is that a lot of the provisions on the bill is not going to get, uh, it's not going to be put in place immediately. It's going to take a couple of years. One of the things is that some of the Medicaid and some of the Social Security benefits that are getting impacted, they're not going to you're not going to see a lot of that until 2026 or halfway through 2026. In reality, a lot of these are going to impact folks who have to plan financially for the future. So I just want to come on here and thank each and every one of you for being here. I know Andy does a great job. He's led, different places where he's led the budget team and he teaches the course. And over the years, when I have gotten to know him, he's been a straight shooter. So I hope you all will enjoy this. And I know Delegate Watts, who's really the dean of Northern Virginia delegation, and really has been somebody who I admire since I got to the General Assembly. So I'm glad she's speaking at this as well. So thank you.